Congratulations! This is the warm-up we started with, so go ahead and hit pause and do this warm-up. Make sure you factor completely. Okay, so if you're looking at the answers, on the first one, I went ahead and rearranged it and wrote it in standard form so that I could see my leading coefficient. I knew that the -5 was going to be my leading coefficient because my leading coefficient is in the number with the exponents to the highest power. So this one, this -100, the exponents would be up to 4, and this one would be 10. And I haven't, this 8 kind of is bigger than all of them, so it would help me figure it out. So I rewrote it, so I knew that I needed to factor out a negative. And so then we end up with -5x squared. Here I needed to multiply -5 by 1 to get -5, x by x to the 7th to get x to the 8th, and y squared times 1 equals y squared. So that's how I came up with those. That's why the ones are in the parentheses. So your final answer is right here. This is the final answer. Okay, so this one I can factor out a GCF, which is something you should always check for first. So I did. I ended up with 3 times 2x squared plus 7x minus 4. I checked the box and diamond to see if there were any factors of -x squared that add up to 7, and there were. So I was able to factor this trinomial, and so I got 3 times 2x minus 1 times x minus 4. Be careful. Once you put this factor in, make sure you keep it with your answer. A squared plus 6ab minus 7b squared. There was no GCF, so I went ahead and did box and diamond since it's a trinomial. And I got a squared times, I got a squared times 7b squared, which gives me 7a squared b squared, and my middle term is 6ab. The factors of that were -1ab plus 7ab, and that got me to 6ab. Went ahead and factor it, and I ended up with a minus b times a plus 7b. So make sure you have parentheses around your factors that we're multiplying. Okay, so we did factor by grouping. This is how you do factor by grouping this is the other strategy I told you I would teach you. So you're going to group the terms so that each has a common factor, and then you're going to find the GCF within each of those groups. There's going to be 2 groups. And then you're going to find the GCF out of your newly found polynomial, and then because you've factored out part of it, and then once you do the GCF there, you should be able to end up with an answer. You should always check the factored form by multiplying it out, and you should always check your answers to make sure they don't factor any further. So go ahead and hit pause and make sure you get this in your notes. Here's an example that we did in class, but I want to show you this new strategy. So we were able to rearrange the middle 2 terms because that doesn't change the problem in any way. So I rearranged those there, and I've grouped this with a common term, a common factor of p and a common factor of q. So if you find the greatest common factor between these two, 6p plus rp, I can factor out a p and end up with p times 6 plus r. Then I'm going to do that with the second part, so I end up with -q times 6 plus r. So then what we end up with is that our original equation equals, or expression equals p times 6 equals this, and now I can take that and do another GCF. So the greatest common factor between this expression is that 6 plus r, and so if I factor that out, so if I show you, if I did a GCF, factor out a 6 plus r, then I would have to multiply that by p to get that, and this by -q, and then I write my final answer right there. So we're going to go through this example. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if I can group these, and I can, and see if there's a common factor here. Now, the big thing is when we do find that common factor, this right here, notice the 6 plus r and the 6 plus r is a common factor, and they're identical between the two. That is a key. If they are not identical, this will not work. So that means we may need to rearrange the middle ones. So the greatest common factor between xy minus 2y would be y, and if I factor out a y, I end up with x minus 2. The greatest common factor between -4x and x would be -4, so I'm going to get -4, and I end up with x minus 2. These are the same, so I know that these are the right order, and it's fine. So then I'm going to find the GCF between those, which is x minus 2. So then I need to multiply that by y to get that, and -4 by that, and I end up with x minus 2 times y minus 4. Okay, so if you have any questions, please let me know on that. We're going to do another example. And it'll be a little bit different. So here's an example. I do have a common factor between these two. Well, first, there is no GCF. You always want to check for a GCF, but then there is no common factor. There is a common factor here between Kn and Mn. They have a common factor of n, but there is no common factor between these two. So I'm going to rearrange these middle terms and see if that'll work. So I've got Kn, and I'll do minus K. Yep, they have a common factor. And then I would end up with plus Mn minus M. Yeah, and they have a common factor. So now that I've rearranged it, I'm going to get the GCF between these two and the GCF between these two. So the common factor between Kn and negative K is going to be K. So I'm going to factor out a K, and I'm going to end up with an N minus 1. And then this one would be, the common factor is M, so plus M, and then I would end up with N minus 1. These match, so I know that I'm good, so now I can do my GCF. Woo! So common factor is N minus 1. And then I end up with K plus M. So then my answer is going to be N. Oops. Hold on. Let's get out. N plus 1 times Km. K plus M. All right. Go ahead and hit pause. Make sure you get this in your notes. And we're going to do another one. So it looks like I have a greatest common factor between these two, and I have a greatest common factor between these two. So I'm going to compare these two first. So the greatest common factor between negative 18 and 10 would probably be 2. I'm going to end up with 5x squared y squared minus 9. And then the greatest common factor between these two would be 3. So then I'm going to have plus 3. And that would give me 5y squared minus 4x squared. This is where we have to stop. This and this do not match. They don't match at all. This and this don't match. So I have no more greatest common factor right here. So what I need to do is I need to not do it this way, and I need to rearrange and see if I move around the middle terms. So if I do 10x squared y squared, I'm going to put plus 15y squared and see if that helps me. And then I'm going to just write this in standard form and do minus 12x squared, and then I'll put the negative 18 at the end. Since that's a constant, it's a constant, remember, is a number without a variable, I'm going to go ahead and put that at the end. All right, so let's see if this works better. So I can factor out a 5y squared, so I end up with 5y squared times, that would give me 2x squared. And times 1, and then I would need to, if I factor out a 5y squared, I would have plus 3. So that would give me that. And then I could factor out a 6, negative 6. So negative 6, and I'd end up with 2x squared plus 3, because I need a negative 18. So yeah, these match now. So this would be where I would do my GCF. And my greatest common factor is going to be that 2x squared plus 3. And I would need to multiply that by 5y squared and negative 6. And so my final answer is going to be 2x squared plus 3 times 5y squared minus 6. All right. So that's going to be my final answer. I cannot factor this any further. This is prime, and this is prime, and this is prime, and that is not. So that means it does not factor any further. If you have any questions on this, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all later.